Why haven't wages increased with inflation? Because there's no law saying they have to. The poors don't have lobbyists. Are you asking about minimum wage or wages in general? Those are two completely separate topics. Minimum wage is a political construct rather than a natural result of the market. That is not indexed to inflation, and there hasn't been the political will to change it. Wages generally trail inflation by a few years. The grocery store owner notices that the cost of his turnips has gone up, so he increased the retail price. But it takes a while longer before store owners notice employees are quitting because his competitors are starting to offer higher wages. Mine have. I have to pay union dues. And the bargaining process is exhausting and never-ending. We need to organize and stick together. The answer is simply that the 50s, 60s set an unrealistic standard. World War II put the U.S. in an extremely unique situation economically that Americans of that era greatly benefited from. But continuing it was never realistic long term. We're not collapsing. We're just regressing to the mean. This guy did a great job explaining things. TLDR. Because we have to compete with the rest of the world again. I think they are systematically thinning out the middle class. If thousands of people lost their jobs and their homes every year, we would never hear about it. The propaganda says everything is fine. No socioeconomic crisis happening here. In fact, the American economy is stronger than it's ever been. For the 1%. And that's all that really matters. The free market wage has gone up every year. McDonald's, Walmart, etc. all start around $10-12 an hour. Wages have. Minimum wage is irrelevant. Don't confuse housing costs with employment value. They are not directly correlated. Housing costs more today because years ago the government intervened and interfered with the market. Today, we're millions of housing starts behind on the development side. And none of those are cheap. Housing costs are at their lowest when developers compete with each other for buyers. They won't do so when they're hamstrung by regulations. In some countries it does. Belgium has an automatic indexation of wages. Minimum wage is not the same as average, median wage. You can have the minimum wage stagnating or even dropping and average, median wage increasing. Edit correction. Because trickle down didn't. Generally speaking, wages do increase with inflation, but not necessarily at the same rate. Different items have had different increases in prices. Housing, for example, has gotten significantly more expensive. Food costs not as much. The dirty truth is that it's because of immigration. You don't let in an infinity workforce from the third world and expect anything else. I'm a software engineer. I make $2 There's an Indian programmer that makes $2,000 that is better than me that a company would love to hire instead of me. Only laws can stop them. Wages have increased. That's one of the metrics the Fed is trying to stabilize. The federal minimum wage hasn't grown, though. Minimum wage is not the same as average, median wage. You can have the minimum wage stagnating or even dropping and average, minimum wage increasing. Because the American people are constantly fooled by people that call themselves elite but are actually the sons and daughters to the most greedy parasitic scum humanity has ever seen. And they don't fall too far from the tree. 1976 minimum wage was $2.30. Using an inflation calculator, that would be $12.36. Lots of states are using federal minimum wage at $7.25, while many are above $12.36. So really it Depends on your state and if you are in a low or high cost of living area. To argue one way or another, you really have to be very specific. You need a labor supply shortage. Companies pay the least amount in wages that are needed to keep the minimum number of workers that it needs to keep things running and the profits flowing. Apparently workers are accepting wage levels these days that have not kept up with inflation. Thus no need to offer more. Depends on the job. 10 years ago you made minimum wage 7.50 for fast food. Now you make roughly 12 at that same place. If you worked at Ford you made 35 10 years ago. Now you make 38. If you sell cars 10 years ago you made roughly 45-55K, last 3 years around 65-70. The market as a whole will never match inflation, but select fields will outpace it.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.